One that's not getting a heart, that's for sure. MaXXXine. Tell me. I got to go to the premiere to X. You got to go to the premiere of Pearl.
Yep.
None of us went to the premiere of MaXXXine, though.
Nope.
And I think it's out on VOD next week. Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both appreciated X. I don't know if either of us like really liked it. I liked it.
I appreciated it. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was fun.
Pearl is a mixed bag, but obviously has this like killer performance from Mia Goth, no pun intended. There's a lot of really fun scenes in Pearl. I don't know if it all adds up to a movie I think is that good, but you know, there's moments for sure. This to me is easily the worst of the three, and that's a shame because I wasn't really even thinking that until a little more than halfway through. I think there's a lot of interesting characters, interesting actors giving big performances. I like the setting. I want to spend time in this world. I just kind of think at some point they had nothing here. They just sort of felt like an exercise in this franchise just for the sake of lengthening it. And it's really got one of the worst third acts in a horror movie I can remember.
I think there's a lot to like in it, but it does feel like it was a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
So in breaking that down, all you really need to see before this is X, right? When this premiered at South by, the big secret was that they had filmed this during COVID over in Australia or I think New Zealand, and then just filmed Pearl back to back. They had it secretly. From X, Pearl was the prequel that told you about one of the characters that would end up in the events of that film where Mia Goth survives. You went to go see Pearl at Toronto, and as soon as they ended it, they hit you with another surprise. They had these two ready, but now they were prepping and at Toronto to get funding for MaXXXine, which they ended up filming way after. So I think there's more of a connection between X and Pearl, and then the way MaXXXine is made. It is made off of the success of these two, which I got to give Ty West all that, right? Like, to film two movies for like under the same budget, under A24, that's dope. But to have X already greenlight MaXXXine before you have Pearl to greenlight MaXXXine, I mean, I think that's what sets you up to have the mentality that he had when he came to this third movie. If X was the survival porn movie that was being shot at a farm, then MaXXXine is the follow-up to that of what happens when you do, I don't know, this big sacrifice or whatever your trauma is that follows you into the successful career or change of a careers that MaXXXine is trying to do now that she's in the industry. She goes from the porn industry to wanting to be a horror movie actress. All the movies is Ty West being a nerd, a film nerd through and through.
Yeah.
He is mimicking the style of movies from the 70s. He was trying to do Technicolor stuff with Pearl, which in rewatching some of the scenes, I do think Pearl looks a lot better than I remember it looking.
Yeah.
And MaXXXine is trying to imitate the 80s. I kind of like how well he tries to imitate it, but I'm also bugged by that bit of like, but you're just doing an imitation. And you're doing an imitation by the way of like the swipes and the slow responses isn't as original. You're just like mimicking the things you remember from 80s movies.
Yeah.
You know?
It feels like pastiche more.
Thank you. That was the word I was
more than like
mind.
homage even or like he's playing off of it and creating something new. And
but then I still like it. Is that bad? Because there are elements to it where like, you know, the bit where she gets put on the cast. I'm like, okay, you're doing like a cool Hollywood thing of, will we ever be able to see this? Because they don't do molds like this anymore. So I don't know. I got to push and pull with it where it's a little, I don't know, lukewarm for me on aspects.
He is a filmmaker, I think, across this trilogy who has peaks that are pretty high, and it's just those valleys that are really low, because the character writing is pretty lackluster in this. And it's funny because I think Ty West is an excellent caster of actors. Like, to have some of the names that he has in this movie, people like Moses Sumney, people like Kevin Bacon. I really like Michelle Monaghan and Bobby Cannavale.
Yeah, what the heck? It's stacked.
Yeah, and he allows them the room to have these really fun performances, but then nothing kind of happens with their characters. They all kind of are, you know, fodder for the canon of, you know, slasher movies. It just doesn't build in a way that rewards you for getting invested. And it is just ultimately these scenes, like when you get a great moment, like you mentioned with the plaster mold, or even the beginning where she delivers that monologue. I really liked her interactions with Elizabeth Debicki, who, commands the screen whenever she's on it. It just doesn't really matter in the end much, anything that happens.
I mean, there is a through line that he's had since the first movie, right? And obviously that gets into spoilers, which is why going into this one, I think it does serve you to see at least acts. They try to recap it for you, and they add extra scenes to it.
Too much?
You do need
a little bit too many flashbacks, I think.
Definitely too many flashbacks. That was another issue with it, right? Because they're also using it not just as flashbacks, but as visions and these like nightmares that she's having. But I think if you were to like rewatch the set, all three, you kind of see the through line, but it needs to stand on its own. And I think that's the problem with MaXXXine. He was lost in his own sauce. You had mentioned the characters, and I think you pinpointed it exactly. The route that he went about that was that he would tell her what the beginning and the middle was, and then she had free reign. And I don't know if that's always the best approach. There are a lot of movies that do this. We talked about Bike Riders doing it with Tom Hardy, but I think Tom Hardy is a person who's going to get you something on the other end. Here, he's directing a movie and she's acting in a movie. They are doing different things because he doesn't want to overstep her character and she's not telling him where to take the story. And that's what gets you a MaXXXine. It's you have like too many cooks in the kitchen. Along with the rest of the cast and how much they try to build it, this very much felt like a victory lap. It's all Easter eggs to his other movies. And I think when you pitch X and Pearl as original movies, which means you're against all the other franchises, then you end up with your third movie and you're doing everything you complain about the other one. He said he put Easter eggs to X everywhere. Stuff that doesn't even make sense. It's the molds from all the X characters who died.
Right.
Are all throughout the set. I'm like, that's cool. But I thought you didn't like it when the
Why?
MCU did that, though. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, I'm like, I don't know. I'm mixed with it because this is the guy who bashed doing stuff like that. And now he's like, well, I don't know. This is my victory lap, bro. I've made all the money I needed already to pay off all these movies. Let's just have fun with MaXXXine. And I'm like, I guess that's what it gets you. I'm not saying he went Joe Coy or anything where it's like anything that comes out of my mouth is going to be set. But I think he could have waited another year to release this. And I think he was stuck on the, I want it to be back to back to back. Mm-hmm. And he got it done. That's cool. But I think a couple more months editing this movie, and I agree with you. The ending happens really quick. I like the story of the ending. But it's really random. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I think I could have bought it had it been, woven in a little bit more or in a way that felt a little bit less like a sudden pivot.
But in his mind, he thinks it is.
Just does not work, I think. Yeah.
It is. It's kind of like a Star Wars, oh no, he returned type thing. No, it's
right.
Like the real fans have known that this is a character or something like that. And yeah, again, that's what I mean by him getting very lost in making fun of franchises only to do the exact franchise cliches. But if he's doing it, it must be different. And no, it's not. I don't hate it. What are you plugging it in at?
I'm probably going 2 stars, honestly, for this one.
2 stars?
Yeah, it's weak in my opinion. I don't know. It doesn't quite get the job done. Even if I liked a lot of the actors and their performances, I just didn't vibe with the characters or the story.
Damn. All right. I'm definitely not crossing a 3.5. That's for sure. I'd settle in at a 3. So between my 3 or 2, we go in 2.5 and no heart for MaXXXine.
Sorry.
You guys started. Music's hard to tie. This man gave us 3 back-to-back movies.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I feel like this trilogy has kind of cemented Mia Goth as a somewhat legendary scream queen.
That's what I was about to ask you. Yeah.
And I think it's also made her, a much more respected actress. I think a lot of people view her as somebody who's very, very capable of delivering as the star of a movie. But I don't know. I feel like this trilogy has sort of weakened Ty West's stance in the horror world. He's given us.
Think so?
I kind of think so. I don't know. I think he's got a lot of fans, but he had 3 at-bats, and I don't know if any of them are particularly great.
Yes, I think there's a difference between like I don't think any of these are like super big masterpieces, but they have an impact on the culture. Like you said, they at bare minimum put her on the map where people now see her as like, the meme of I'm a star, that she's this big horror actress.
Yeah.
The worst part would be is that I think he finds success in these and he's got big portions of horror fans that do like him. But what's going to come next, especially with her? All the scenes that we like from this trilogy from her are her going bonkers. So where's the next performance? Is it going to have to be her playing MaXXXine again? She could also very quickly be typecast. And that's the other part of she was directing herself almost. So if she's directing herself, this is her being her. You can't have this character again for whatever the next movie is. So she's either going to be the doe-eyed face that she was in all the other movies that you see there, or this. And I feel like, dang, you can also get pigeonholed very quickly. So
Right.
we'll see.
Do you think they make a fourth one, or you think this is the end of the X trilogy?
Oh my gosh, bro! I'm not gonna say no, but like for MaXXXine, you give it more time. Give it a couple years, bro.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can continue it later.
Let's
You-
take
you
off
already
half a
did-
decade.
Yeah, you already did a trilogy, bro. So I know you're gonna do the franchise stuff. Oh my gosh, you were so much better than the Friday 13th, and now you're gonna have 13 on you. But just give it a little bit of time. That's it. Give us some room to breathe.
Yeah.
But yeah, MaXXXine out in theaters, should be available like literally in a couple of weeks. But it continues the whole realm. Have you had a favorite Hollywood centric type movie? I had mentioned stop motion earlier. I like that approach of horror and the filmmaking community. Excuse me, how you use art and the such. It doesn't have to be horror, but I don't know if you've had any other ones that have stood out this year.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were
Madness.
talking recently about The Stuntman, one of the movies that I think has lays some inspiration for The Fall Guy. I really like that one. May December, in its own way, is a movie about Hollywood,
I
and
agree.
I really
I
love that depiction. I love La La Land, although I don't know if I love it necessarily as a movie about Hollywood. I just love that movie. Birdman as well. It's a good question. There's a lot of classics. Sunset
Nope.
Boulevard. Nope. It's a great pick.
Hell yeah.